It is Matt Einhaber from TitleBox. We're going to get started right now at 10 a.m. I think there's still some people coming in. I've been told that my voice is a little quiet on this microphone. So if anyone has trouble hearing me, please just, you can type in the chat and let me know. And hopefully that won't be an issue. I'll try to speak directly into it and make sure everybody can hear me loud and clear. It's 10 o'clock and we're going to get moving. Again, I appreciate you coming. And we're here to talk about TitleBox, obviously. So let's kind of just dive right into it. Sorry for that. So let's talk about what's been going on in the marketplace. Obviously, we're talking about the title industry and particularly the title agency business. It says 2020 here, but really we're in a really interesting time. I don't have to tell everyone that over the past year or so, it's been really wild in a lot of ways. I've been in title agency business for a long time, and I've seen a lot of fundamental changes coming before 2020 started. Before the last year, the events of the last year have really accelerated things quite a bit. And so that's what we're really going to talk about. And what I really want to talk about is some of the fundamentals that have really been different and changed. And just the fact that the last year or so has really accelerated a lot of those things. So very quickly, I'll give you a minute on just kind of who I am. My name is Matt Einhaber. I've been, again, in the title industry, in the agency business specifically for about 18 years. Started and built and ran a title agency that was in multi-states for 15 of those years. So for most of that time. So I know the title agency space quite well. Let's talk about basically really three things I want to drill down on. Title is a really tough business. I think people kind of take that for granted, but the agency business is tough for a lot of reasons. And a lot of those reasons have to do, it's not that we're doing, brain surgery here, but it has to do with the human dynamics involved, right? So there's three things that I'm going to drill down on a little bit. Number one, basically we're completely dependent on expert human beings in this industry, right? It's a very difficult thing to scale. It's much more of a practice than it is a business, even with larger operations, right? If you're dependent on expert human beings, it's really a collective of artists more than anything. So we'll talk about that. Settlement services versus title, and managing debts and liabilities against real estate. So those are two different spheres that I see as the agency. And so we'll talk about that as well. And then of course, title as a logistical process business in which we have no control over the process, but we're responsible for delivering its outcome. These are three key points. So let's drill down into those in detail. Let's start with being dependent on experts. It's almost impossible to scale this business in that, like I said, when you're dependent on experts, you're really a collective of artists. You're much more of a practice than you are, with business process, right? And that the industry has become grossly overdependent on these experts. And in case anybody hasn't noticed, it's been really obvious over the past year. Every agency and anyone in the title agency space is having really trouble hiring people. And that's what everyone's complaint and pain is. That's the most vocal complaint and pain. I can't hire enough people. I can't hire people fast enough. I can't find good people to hire. People that I'm hiring now cost way more than they did a year or two ago. And that's a function of supply and demand. That's because the supply isn't there. Those people, there aren't enough of those people. And the demand has far outstripped supply. So the cost goes up. That's just natural. That's what's going to happen. And that's the space that we're in. And that's not really the fundamental problem. That's really a symptom, that's a sneeze. It's not the reason why you're sneezing, right? That's just a symptom. And what's really going on here is that the industry has become overdependent on human beings, and the supply is diminishing, and that's going to keep happening. We saw that happening. What we thought was going to be really a 10-year trajectory of really having a glut in supply of experts to work in title has been accelerated. It's probably more of a 3 to 5 year space. And people are feeling that a lot now. But when demand softens a little bit at some point in a year or two, or whenever that might be, the supply is going to continue to go down. That's not going to change. That problem is here to stay. Settlement services versus title, my second point that I wanted to talk about, which, really what I mean by this is I see the title industry space as really, let's say agency. A title agency really does two fundamental things. They do the mechanics of managing debts and liabilities against real estate, right? That's the purpose of a title agency. That's why the title business exists, to be perfectly honest with you. That's how it kind of began, right? And, you know, it is to make sure that when someone's buying or when a lender is lending against real estate, that there are no debts or liabilities that get in the way. And that can be complicated. It's not so simple. It's different, you know, debts and liabilities behave differently against real estate in different places, different states, different counties, in some cases, even different municipalities. So it takes an enormous amount of local geographic subject matter expertise in order to really manage that, you know, and fully understand. I want to make sure I'm screen sharing too, guys, and I apologize if not. It was just brought to my attention that perhaps I'm not screen sharing. So hopefully you've been following along, but I'm rolling right into the screen share. And I'm sorry for the technical difficulty there and the little change. All right, hopefully now you can see my screen. Sorry about that, but anyway, and that is really the mechanics, the fundamentals of title. What's happened over time, over the years, is that the settlement services side of the business has become, you know, noisy, way more noisy than it used to be, right? It requires a lot more attention and time to manage clients, customers, buyers, sellers, realtors, lenders, loan officers, whatever, to build a CD, to build a settlement statement than it did to build a HUD-1 statement, you know, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. That's become a more and more noisy space, and it's eaten up more and more of the resources of title insurance agencies than ever before. And so, you know, what the challenge is managing the debts and liabilities against real estate along the way, right? The settlement services has truly grown disproportionate. The focus there has grown disproportionate as well. So that's kind of point number two. Let's talk about the logistical process business that we're in here in the title agency world, in which we have really no control over, but are responsible for delivering its outcome. Imagine if Amazon, you know, if you could go into Amazon and order a product, right, that, you know, and you said, hey, I want this delivered on Tuesday at 3:48 p.m., right? That's when I want it to walk in the door. That would be an impossible thing for Amazon to tackle. It would be a business that would be, you know, not really feasible and not practical, you know, and your book or your toilet paper or whatever it is that you ordered, you know, would cost $40,000, right? And that's kind of what happens in the title space too. It's a really tough, this is one of the reasons why it's a really tough business, you know, in that you've got, you know, sales pushing process, telling the agency business, which is really process, how they want things to, you know, how they want the outcome to be. And that's a really difficult thing to manage because your process, the agency business is process, and you've got salespeople pushing you around telling you when those things are. So that just makes it even more difficult. I am so sorry for that noise. Sorry about that. A little interruption, I apologize. So breaking down a very complex series of dynamics, that is the title agency business, you know, not because what we do is rocket science, but the human dynamics around the consumer, the one that actually pays for your product, never actually chooses to buy it. This, you know, this is a crazy thing that creates a lot of weird dynamics in the title agency space. The payee doesn't understand it and doesn't value it, right? How could they? They don't understand what it is that we do. The constituent that's responsible for driving business to you is your real client, but they don't pay for it, right? Your loan officers, your realtors. So they're motivated by other things. And they also don't really understand what really title is about and what the purpose of the agency is and what you're doing there behind the scenes. You know, the industry hasn't done us any favors in identifying that value and really good PR for the world. And as a result, you know, the line of perceived value and power that the title company has in the transaction has moved. And so, you know, all this is really macro, and we can ponder on this for years, but, you know, agencies are in pain and there's a lot of manual process. And so TitleBox is really focused on how to fix that stuff, not to mention kind of where we are right now. And we talked about the supply demand curve in terms of human beings, right? The humans that the industry has relied on as experts to clear title has totally been, you know, that supply has, you know, the demand is far outstripped supply. And if you look at this kind of old school supply demand curve, we're probably somewhere around here right now. And that's why the cost and the ability to hire and find good people is, you know, has become so hard, but it's really a symptom of what's going on and is here to stay. It's really a long-term kind of a thing. Remember these things? Settlement services, it has eaten up more and more of your time, resources, and energy than actual title mechanics, searches, clearance, and managing debts and liabilities against real estate. Well, here's the thing: the settlement service is part of this business, right? Preparing closing disclosures, certainly email response time, coordinating settlements, managing lender portals for preparing your closing disclosures. All these things are customer-facing activities. They're ROI activities, right? Return on investment, meaning when you're spending time, even preparing closing disclosures or communicating with clients or coordinating settlements, you're doing things that, you're doing your work and you're spending time touching and in front of customers and clients and people that have the ear of your customers and clients that refer you business, right? Buyers, sellers, even if they're not your direct customers. So those are the things that you should be spending all of your time doing if possible. Every minute you're doing that is an opportunity for you to earn more business, to show them that you're, to give them a great experience, or perhaps not, if you don't get back to them in time, or whatever the case may be. So you really want to spend all your time and have your team spend as much time on this part of the space as possible, right? Because the obvious, a satisfied customer is the best business strategy. Non-ROI activities are keeping you away from those ROI activities. When you're clearing title, when you're digging into a judgment, when you're ordering a payoff, and all the administrative style work that's tied into that, trying to figure out, how do you order the payoff, print the form, scan the thing in, all of that stuff takes up a lot of time of your team. And it's time that they're not communicating with clients and not touching lenders and realtors and buyers and sellers and those that can either directly or indirectly result in more business for you. And so it's costing you a lot more than you realize. And so hiring people in this space can sometimes feel a little bit like this. You can teach people how to build CDs. You can teach people how to fund or record. You can teach people how to be friendly to clients. I say you can teach people, it's inherent. So you can hire people, I should say, to be friendly to clients. But figuring out, hiring people and training them to clear title, to understand how to look at a commitment or a search and get that clear to close is something that takes inherent experience. It's a 10,000 hour type of activity. And so it's very, very difficult to hire for. And that's where people are kind of falling down now. And so on the setup of all of that, let's talk about TitleBox and how we solve some of these problems, because this is really why we were born. Title companies feel usually more reactive than proactive to us. When we look at an agency, you're reacting to your pipeline. You're trying to manage by settlement date. You're getting things clear, by settlement date. And then you get to the settlement, people think they're clear to close and they're really not. And there's missing a payoff, or you discover something further down the line. They're often not clean processes, right? So first, we created our special sauce. We built all of the data and information for every title clearance scenario possible, so that the answer to everything was at everyone's fingertips. So let me explain what that means exactly. So you start with an address, and now we know what state the property is in, what county the property is in. Now, what's your problem, right? There are categories of problems. Is it a judgment? Is it a lien? Is it a divorce situation? Association or community, a state entity, whatever it is. And now we can deliver first elimination, right? The 15 to 17% of the time, we can reduce that judgment, for example, by applying one of these rules. The rest of the time, we need to take an action. So creating this kind of funnel enables us to have very, very consistent rule application and consistent action. We've built effectively an action engine for clearing title, and we put human beings behind it, right? So it's really like, super powered human beings to be able to clear title in an effective and efficient way that agencies really don't have access to. So it worked. And so well that we pivoted, because I used to own a title agency, and this became our whole business. And we started serving title companies. And at first, we purposely kept it limited to just a few clients. And we really, really worked out the kinks and developed some of the features that are needed in order to really, really make it work. As a title agency, it's not like search. We're downstream, so you're much more involved in these transactions. You've got realtors and lenders asking you what's going on. You've got people that want to close and settle, unexpectedly sometimes in the case of refis, or dates move or change, and you need to know what's going on with your transactions at all times. And so we built an interface that allows you to do that, and we put human beings behind it, so that you have the support when you need it as well. And just being focused completely on those on clearing title, and not on, what sometimes feels like a fire drill, right? To manage settlements, as lenders and realtors and whomever are expecting response time so quickly, and moving dates around and really dictating that process, like we talked about earlier, enables us to move lightning fast, so much faster, and you really feel your pipeline moving and getting faster. We basically categorized, we effectively, what TitleBox is start to finish title clearance for agencies. So we begin when your search is complete, right? And that's when our work starts. We're downstream of search. And when we're done, you are clear to close. So anything that was in the way, any of these things, whether it's bankruptcy, foreclosure, mortgages, any of these estates, any of this stuff, whatever falls under any category that might be a title clearance issue, we have cleared out of the way. And one of the deliverables to make that crystal clear for you is a settlement checklist. So when you're done, you'll see a settlement checklist of every single thing you need to know in order to go to the table. We'll see if we share that with you in a moment and give you kind of a visual of that, right? But 100% done, clear for you title. You can completely focus on your customers and the customer activity. There are two ways to measure cost. One is econometric. You've got people doing things now, and it's going to cost you X, and then you're going to do it in a different way, and there's going to be a variable cost, and it's going to cost you, Y. The other thing is the focus, the unbelievable focus and ability to open up and move faster, have your files delivered faster and clear to close faster. Start telling lenders, hey, we're clear, we're ready for you. Median turn times of, between 2 and 5 calendar days, right? And so that your lenders, your clients, and your team really feels that, and that makes all the difference in the world. A couple of screenshot views of our interface, because again, we built this so that you have full access to all your files, obviously, at any given moment. And you can really see here where we started. Here's how we started transaction. We grade file A, B, or C. Chain of title's clear. There's a couple mortgages, how many judgments or liens, how many other issues, detail on that. So you know what's going on at all times, where we began, and where we are now, what we need to do in order to get you clear to close, what's been completed. And of course, you can expand this. This isn't live on, in our portal. However, it's just a screenshot, but you expand, you click on this and expand, and you get that detail. So when your lender calls you, or a loan officer calls you, or a realtor calls you and says, hey, we need to close this tonight, or we need to close this, next week, even though it was supposed to close next month, what's the status? You know exactly what the status is. You can give them an intelligent answer, detail right away, visually in seconds. And then of course, there's a human being behind it. Should you want to, should you have questions, or just want a human being behind it, because title insurance and title clearance is definitely not binary. It's not black and white. There are a lot of nuances and variables to doing this work. And obviously all the supporting documentation is there as well. And so that's really insight into TitleBox, and that's what we do. Again, we start when your search is complete. We finish when you are clear to close, and the first material work that you're doing is building your settlement statement and going to the table. What I unfortunately didn't share with you today was that that sample, which is your settlement checklist. We'll tell you who needs to sign, taxes, payoffs, utilities, reimbursements, literally everything. So you have the ability to, going effectively cold, right? Never having seen this transaction before, and all the things that we learned in clearance get communicated to you as you go to build your settlement statement, which is another really super important component to what we do. So that, it's very, very valuable to separate these functions, and can be, from a risk perspective, really dicey when it comes to making sure that the people that are going to settlement or building up your settlement package understand, everything that was learned in title clearance, so nothing gets missed. So we've really built it from an agency perspective, to make sure that we cover for risk, speed, and focus, and deliver a ton of value to title agents. So if you have any further questions, or you want to reach out, obviously, please, by all means, you can email me directly. It's Matt, M-A-T-T, at thetitlebox.com. And that is the site, obviously, also thetitlebox.com. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.